I expressed to the Taoiseach my confidence in his government's ability to get Ireland moving again.
No matter what economic metric you apply to the Irish economy, there's no doubt that it's moving in the right direction. So the Irish economy is back on track. The job isn't finished, but we're heading towards full employment and stable, sustainable growth.
Down to 350 at 350,000, gentlemen. At 350,000, they have at 350.
Okay, stop. Yes, unemployment is at a record 10-year low. And yes, property prices and rents have gone through the roof. Dublin is among the most expensive cities in the world. But there you have it. The island of Ireland is not just Dublin. This recovery, that's been coined the term the Celtic Phoenix, is only being seen in our cities. And the urban-rural divide is forcing people to either move to the cities and leave their homes behind, or commute in their droves, from the towns and villages to the bright lights of the city. I'm going to find out what that lifestyle is like and if there's anything we can do to fix it.
Nowadays I see it like left and right of me, it's like a sleepover community. People are gone early in the morning and they're not back till late at night.
A lot of the people that are commuting in these here don't see their children until weekends. Even they're living at home, they still don't see their children because they're gone before their children get up in the morning, and their children are gone to bed by the time they get home at night. So family life has changed in rural Ireland because of this.
While things have improved, but more people might be working, but they're having to commute to go to work.
It's to do with the misdistribution of money in the country and the misdistribution of work in the country.
The traditional job structure only remains for very, very few. There is a normality about sitting in traffic for hours and coming home when it's dark. To give us an idea of the journey that thousands endure, firstly I spoke to a commuter that works for one of the many tech giants that have landed in our capital.
My name is Lucy O'Driscoll, and I work as a Director of International Business Development for an e-commerce company based right in the heart of Dublin here in Ireland, and I commute on a daily basis from rural Kilkenny. So from Kilkenny to Dublin, and typically that works out to be that I have to travel to the local either train station or bus depot in Kilkenny City. Normally my commute starts in the morning. I rise at about 5 o'clock, and then at 6 I make my way to the train station or to the bus depot, and I travel on the 6:30 train and get into Dublin City itself, Houston, at about 8:30. Then I have to join the masses and the queues to try and attempt to get onto the local Lewis line. Typically you have to wait maybe 1 or 2 Lewises to go along before you get on, if you're lucky, the third. In a very crammed, stressful type situation, then I travel the Lewis line down to Abbey Street in the city centre. So my daily commute in the mornings can take me up to 2.5 to 3 hours to get actually to my office desk. And then in the evening, if I'm lucky to make the last train from Houston Station, which is at 6:30, if I'm lucky to make that on time from the office, it takes me another 2 hours to get back to Kilkenny and to get home for dinner in the evening. So working for an 8-hour day takes me the guts of like 5 hours travelling in total on a daily basis.
So Lucy faces more than a 2-hour commute every morning, using car, train and tram. To go further rural, I went back to my hometown in South Kerry and joined in on the commute with Phil Boyle, a construction foreman who gave me one of my first summer jobs. So I'm standing now at the top of the main street. It's 5:20, and to be honest, I'm not in the mood for a road trip. A few jeeps and vans have passed by, probably thinking I'm still out from the night before. My lift should be here any minute now. Oh, I can't wait to get back to bed. Well, Phil.
Morning, Josh.
How's things?
Not too bad.
Bright and early.
Bright and early.
So how long have you been doing this commute for now?
How long am I commuting? I'm this last year and a half now commuting to Cork every morning. We do Limerick as well, and we go right into Roscommon. We're talking leaving the house mornings at 5:30 in the morning and getting home at 9 o'clock at night. It's changed completely now.
It's a long day. You're nearly in the car more than you're on the side, I suppose.
You're 50% in the car now. Every morning there's a queue of transport leaving here, going to large cities and towns.
Yeah.
Travelling. There's no work local anymore. The young people have left Ireland, and the trades are not here anymore either. So People are looking for tradespeople to travel, and they're not there anymore. They have to travel. Immigration has caused a lot of this too.
And is it worth it, this long commute every day? Does it pay off in the end?
It doesn't, because the labour rates aren't increasing. The work's increasing in the bit larger towns, and you have to travel, so it's costing you more because you're out the cost of travelling, and the hours that you're travelling you're not getting paid for.
Yeah, it's not adding up.
It's not adding up, no. It doesn't. And most people have built houses during the boom and that, and can't afford to sell and move to these cities because the price you get for your house won't cover your mortgage that you have on them.
Now that is only the start of his day. In around 2 hours' time, he'd land to one of the sites, do a day's work, and then face the road again, and repeat and repeat. Whether it's jumping on board the commuter train to Dublin or trekking across the country by van. If you live in rural Ireland, your journey to work is part of your job. Since so many are living this routine, I'm thinking to myself, surely someone somewhere must be trying to reduce the numbers of people that have to leave rural Ireland. So I went about finding out what is being done.
I'm Louise Lennon, and I'm the Policy and Communications Officer with Irish Rural Link. We're a non-profit organisation, and we promote sustainable rural communities, marginalised communities in rural areas. Well, we try to, come up with solutions, and I suppose we work with some of the groups that provide services to prevent social exclusion. So government are looking maybe to move towards a community care, primary care health service. And I think those services are needed. We'd work as well with the rural transport networks. So they're the local link companies. It's the provision of public transport in rural areas. We'd be advocating as well that service is properly funded, which it hasn't been for the past number of years. That so people can access employment. We're also involved with a few European projects now at the moment. One of them is micro-enterprise. So it's partnering with 6 other EU countries and Maynooth University. So we're looking at enhancing micro-entrepreneurs.
It's great to hear that there are organisations out there who are not just doing it for their own reputation, that who genuinely care about the people of Ireland who are not seeing this so-called recovery. Now, from hearing of Lucy and Phil's ordeal every morning and evening, and with Louise explaining the difficulties that can be faced in a rural area, I need to find out what solutions there must be to help this. Something can surely improve the situation.
You might spot some goats. Cattle are mainly reared on the island, but there is one goat farm run by a blind man, Mr. Ed Harper.
I have heard about a project that was done on Cape Clear Island a few years ago that sounds just like what I'm looking for. So here I am on the ferry, heading 8 miles off the West Cork coast. The sun is shining down and the water is crashing off the side. Whether it's commuting by boat to get necessities on the mainland, or if your job leaves you sitting in traffic for hours each day, we have to try and narrow the urban-rural divide. I'm about to meet a goat farmer who's blind, that said enough was enough and did something about it.
My name's Ed Harper. I come originally from near Manchester in England. I've lived on Cape Clear for 39 years. For those 39 years, I've been a goat farmer. And before that, I was a teacher. I taught sociology, environmental studies and general studies. Well, essentially, myself and a friend of mine who got a job as development officer for the Sherkin, which is our neighbouring island, and the smaller islands, we commissioned somebody to do a study on the possible use of the internet for the islands. That would have been, I think, in about 96, 97, that kind of time. And out of that, we managed to get somebody on a government scheme who went around setting up websites for most of the inhabited islands of Ireland, in fact. And then his main role was to foster the use of computers on this island, and on the rest of the Roaring Water Bay Islands. First of all, we did that and started teaching people to use email. And we're talking phone line speeds. And that was fantastic. We got the islands connected, and the Federation of Irish Islands could see the advantages of this and came on board. And the Dawn company was the one we set up, which it was actually, it's an acronym. It stands for Distributed Atlantic Wireless Network. Essentially, yes, Dawn came into being as a community run company by guarantee, limited by guarantee, and I think it was 2002. Our problem is we are not in the city. We are not connected to fibre broadband on the mainland, and so our speeds are brutal. In modern terms, they're brutal. They're better, way better than they used to be. Attracting other families to come here, making it possible for other families to come here, making it more possible for people with young children to stay here through the teenage years. But the broadband's done more, I think, for that, and also bringing in new families, entirely new families. For instance, we have some translators on the islands who couldn't do their jobs without actually having some kind of reasonable internet connection. For me, it's absolutely essential because I use a screen reader which reads to me everything that comes up on the screen. So email to me is way preferable to getting stuff in the post, because I can send it, I can check what I've written, I can read what comes back. And you know, the same with pretty well everything.
What an interesting venture to be part of, and such a proud project to have started. It's steps like Ed's community internet service that can bring change to areas that are declining. Now, I know what their commute involves, but how big of a divide are we dealing with here? And how does it affect people's lives?
I know a lot of people who are travelling and facing the same journey every day. So on the train that I get, people are actually coming from the original stop, which is Waterford. So you meet a lot of people, you see the same faces nearly every day. And I suppose I've been doing it now for the last few years. So you get to know a lot of people and you be chatting to them on the trains. And they just can't seem to get the jobs that they require in Waterford or in the rural kind of areas in Kilkenny when they travel to the same train stop that I'm at, and the same on the bus. So you meet loads of people doing it every day of the week, yeah.
I've been working in the construction business between Ireland and the UK this last 30 years, and I've moved back 17 years ago from the UK. With all this boom building that was on here, it came to a sad end very quick. We're commuting a long time, but commuting in the cities and living in London is a lot easier than commuting in rural Ireland. Your mileage is a lot greater and your time on the road is a lot greater.
I suppose for young people, people aren't emigrating as much, but they are migrating to the city centres, and a lot of them are commuting because of the accommodation crisis as well. You know, you have to look at, is that kind of what you want for Ireland? You need better regional development and better balanced regional development as well, so that people don't have to commute, that they live near where they work.
We have this crazy situation of small farmers being forced off the land because, for instance, the next generation of farmers they're still farming. Some of them, they're in Canada and Australia. They left during the recession. They'll never come back. You know, if you can provide in the countryside a reasonable life, a reasonable degree of communication with those facilities in the cities you need, but intercommunication between the towns and villages.
The consistency that you would have with a 9 to 5 is completely gone out the window, you know, so it does have massive implication on your routine, on your family, your extended family. So it's very hard to make plans, very hard to look after children and their routine and their structure with school and outside of school.
The roads and everything, and the wear and tear of vehicles and the cost of the fuel and everything. Well, all the road laws for everything is based on city. There's no road laws based on rural Ireland. It's all based on city life. Whereas somebody from Dublin needs to come down and look at rural Ireland to see what the road situation is.
And I did commute. The previous job I was in Dublin as well, so I did commute from Athlone. And I used to get the train, but like any time I'm getting the train now, you'd see the increase of people commuting. Like that still is the case now. Until quality jobs start happening, or people are looking to move back to rural areas or see an opportunity. And I suppose it's about making rural areas an attractive place to live, or, you know, that people want to live there and want to remain in their town or village.
The whole roads policy is how do you get people rapidly, mostly into Dublin, and then if not Dublin, well, Cork, and then maybe Galway. Because the whole transport network is about feeding Dublin. That has to change if we're going to really make Ireland the country it used to be, and not that long ago.
One thing for sure is this recovery is not being spread out evenly. And with this comes knock-on effects for families, communities, towns and villages. With one recovery but two regions, those living a life not where they live know firsthand what's needed to make all of Ireland grow.
I see a huge implication happening in rural Ireland now, because I think the family unit itself is breaking down because there's no structure in your routine. So it affects children and it affects your relationship, etc. And I think, when the family unit breaks down, then society breaks down around it, or the community breaks down around it. When you go back 20 years ago, everybody participated in community events and they did voluntary work in the community, etc. But now people just don't have the time to do that, So I just think it's a decentralisation policy at a government level. I think also the IT infrastructure needs to be there, and the building infrastructure, and then the talent pools need to be there at a local level. It's probably liaising with the universities and industry and the enterprise boards to help create more employment in the local rural community would be ideal.
As far as I can see, rural Ireland's completely forgotten about. The housing department are saying that they're going to build these social houses and do all this stuff, but they have never looked outside Dublin, and they're doing small bits in Cork and Galway, but that's as far as it goes. Anywhere else hasn't been looked at. So there's a lot of things that can be done. There's a lot of IT businesses and things coming into the cities which can be done in the countries in rural Ireland, and other works. I agree that there's a lot of stuff that has to be in the cities, but there's a lot of stuff that's gone into the city that should be in rural Ireland, but because they haven't got the internet right throughout the country, it can't happen, and it's up to the state and the government to get the broadband up and running so that any industry that wants to come into the country can go anywhere they want to.
In rural areas, there's a vast range of different businesses you could be tapping into, like even down to agri-food, and the artisan food sector has come on an awful lot in the last number of years. But to put the supports in there, like you have your local enterprise office, that people are more aware of it, and even you probably need something kind of entrepreneur, kind of give supports to startups, but even for people thinking about starting up a business, how they'd go about it, getting people back into the village, into, the main street, we'll say, of the towns and the villages. So you'd have to look at the rates local authorities are charging, and then is there some incentives they could do, maybe reduce the rates for a while if it is a new business coming in. Then there's, again, like you're talking about, broadband is, so that people can promote their business online.
We need a serious change in political will. We need an increase in the use of an improvement in the rural broadband system, and the government knows this, it keeps saying it. To an extent, it isn't prepared to work with community broadband systems. That's what it should be promoting. If we can do it here, it can be done in villages on the mainland. The other thing is that what we need to do is we need to promote a proper publicly owned, publicly financed public transport system. The bones of it are there already. We've got Bus Éireann in the countryside. We also have the Rural Transport Programme, but they're not really coordinated properly, and they need to be. It requires communities to be able to see themselves as what they were and what they're decreasingly, which is communities. If you could put more power back into the countryside, in political power into people's hands, and you put more work back into people's hands, and you need both together, because at the minute the countryside is largely a place that things are grown, either animals, trees, food, and they're taken away and they're used in the cities, and that's the way the government sees it. The countryside feeds the cities with materials and with people, and that's got to change.
Coming from the country but living in the city, I can see for myself that there are vast differences in our speed of recovery. But hearing from Lucy, Phil, Louise and Ed on their lifestyles, commitments and resolving, I've discovered that commuting has become accepted as a normality. But change is possible. For the workers who love where they're from but who travel by planes, trains and automobiles to stay there, Ireland's recovery has led to a crash in work-life balance. The crucial service I found out on this journey that is needed to sustain rural Ireland is broadband. The electrification of today is what can attract employment to all areas. The rollout for a national broadband plan has been hit by setbacks again and again, which damages the faith of seeing the country flourish. Small communities planting the seeds are our best chance at success. Or we can wait and hope that everyone is committed.
Project Ireland 2040 is all about investing in our public infrastructure, bringing economic opportunity and other opportunities to all parts of the country, to every individual and every family.